Hey everybody, welcome. This is Tom from Beatfreeks here. I hope you're doing well. And yeah, we are here today to discuss one of our amazing projects from our schemes, Fuel Funding. It's in a way to support young people and young adults to realize their ideas. How can you get your ideas quickly off the ground and just avoid a lot of just the unnecessary things like long applications, unsure how to do them, but you've got an urgent thing that you really want to get, and an important thing. Young people have amazing stories to tell and campaigns and ways to change the world, and we empower them through Fuel. And I've got today here with me an amazing person. Her name's Megan. Megan, if you want to give us a little wave. Thank you so much for coming through. We've had some amazing discussions and it's been a pleasure to follow your journey so far. And yeah, from our conversations, I just thought it would be really great for you to have this discussion online, and I felt people should hear this. People should hear you've got an amazing cause that you want to be working towards and working for, and we're going to unpick a bit of that and some themes around that. I said that I would introduce you, but I feel like you're more than equipped. Do you want to just let us know a little bit about who you are?
Okay, so my name's Megan Prescott. I am an actress, a writer, and general good person, and I am currently in the midst of a lot of research to do with sex work and the legislation around sex work. Amazing,
amazing. So I guess it's good to just think about, actually unpick what is your project about, and yeah, I'm just going to leave that floor with you.
So my project, or the project that I got the Fuel funding for, was a research project. A lot of the issues that we're having with trying to get any kind of projects to do with sex work off the ground is that people don't really want to be seen to support sex work, which is another issue in itself. So I wanted to do research, but I did want to pay all my research participants, because in any other genre you would pay your research participants, and so I needed Fuel funding, especially because as Corona hit, the topic became more relevant, and obviously it forced a lot of sex workers into situations that were even more difficult than maybe the ones they were in before. So I wanted funding to be able to research the project properly and be able to pay the research participants, and Fuel could help with that.
Amazing. And yeah, you've kind of unpicked about things like how it's come about. What was the intention of this? You know, people listening and people watching this, you know, some of the things that you say in the phrases, it can trigger an automatic maybe stereotype or misconception, or just a premeditated thought, and maybe that's people switched off after that.
Yeah.
But actually you said something really interesting about, actually these are people with jobs, you know, separating the person from their jobs, and you wanted to uncover a lot about how legislation isn't protecting them. So can you just uncover a little bit about that and what was the intention of your project?
I mean, my project wasn't going to be able to help in any huge sense, but I don't want the whole project to be another kind of thing that we see in media that's like, hey, sex work, provocative, interesting subject, but like, let's not pay any attention to the people that are actually involved in the industry, and let's not get them involved. Let's talk over them. And I didn't want to do that. I myself have been involved in the industry on and off, and it drives me mad to no end when you get journalists trying to cover a topic that they clearly have no idea about. Often, as soon as you mention sex work, people assume that there is a lot of things that come with that. Sometimes there are things that are themes that run through it, but it's such a huge industry and it affects so many people so differently that you cannot make any sweeping statements about the industry as a whole. So my research project, I wanted it to be open-minded and involve people from all different parts of the industry, not just the parts that you might see often glamorized on TV, or the types that you see that are like trauma porn. I didn't want to do it like that. I just wanted a realistic view of sex work and treating sex work like work, which is really what everybody involved wants. It's just to be sex work to be treated like work, but yeah, often it isn't, and that is where the root of the problem comes from, especially with the legislation.
Yeah, and tell us a little bit about that, from maybe some of your findings and you know, some things that you shared with me. I just wasn't even it wasn't even on my mind. I didn't think about those things, and there might be a lot of people who may be being like myself, actually going, well, what are you talking about? Like, what is the issue? What is the, and you've uncovered quite a bit already. I think you talked a little bit about some individual things that you didn't even anticipate yourself, and like the safety of people.
So the issues that I've found that shocked me to do with the sex work legislation, for one thing, for years and years, maybe like 5 years ago, I assumed sex work was illegal. It's not. It's not illegal in the UK. Selling sex for money, indirect or directly, is not illegal in the UK, which then confused me, because I was like, well, there are so many rules around it that make it essentially illegal, but it's not illegal, which is part of the reason why the legislation is much more damaging than anything else. The reason people will say, oh no, we need to criminalise sex work, we need to criminalise the buyers, or either way, is because a lot of them say that they're coming from a point of view where they're trying to protect people. And my issue with that is that the more I've experienced this industry, and the more I've researched it, the more I've spoken to other people that have been involved in different areas of the industry, those laws and legislation don't actually play out how the people who put them in place obviously planned them to play out. So, for example, one of the laws is like the anti-brothel keeping law. So you would assume, and through a lot of my previous research before the fuel funding, I just did questionnaires and I asked people, what do you think the definition of a brothel is? And a lot of the responses I got were, oh, it's a huge establishment with pimps and madams, and people sell sex for money, and there's lots of trafficking and blah, 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 which that definition does cover a brothel, a type of, like a brothel, but so that's what they had in mind when they put the law in place. But when that plays out in real life, actually the definition of a brothel is a venue shared by more than one sex worker, even if they're not using it at the same time to carry out sex work. So how that plays out is, a lot of the time sex workers will get done for brothel keeping when they're just using a flat, maybe together for safety, to work out of, rather than maybe doing street-based sex work or working alone, which is much more dangerous. They will, if they get done for brothel keeping, they could face up to 8 years in jail and a huge fine, but all they were doing was working together for safety. So you see how that law, while in principle and on paper might sound like, oh yeah, this is, of course we can't have brothels, blah, 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 we don't want traffickers and pimps. Those are completely different parts of legality. Trafficking and human trafficking and extorting people, that is a different area of the law, but people are conflating it with sex work, and that is why we have these laws and regulations which mean it's very dangerous to be in a lot of areas of sex work. Yeah,
no, that's really great, just to get a refresher on that, actually, because I remember when you talked about it, I was just like, yeah, I didn't even think about that at all. That wasn't even on my thought. What's progressed since then? You know, I think you've for you in the project and where it's gone, because you said, you know, this was funded for research, and one of the things that you found was just how individual people's circumstances, it was just great to hear, and actually, well, distressing at the same time. And now you're using that research to put on, I guess, a piece of theatre or performance. Is that right?
Yeah, ideally I would like to create a piece of theatre. Again, if this turns into another project that seems to be, you know, just trying to be provocative for the sake of being provocative and not actually helping people, not actually involving people in the industry, I would rather not do it than it become one of those projects. But ideally I would like to create a piece of theatre which has a story and it's entertaining, but it also, it kind of elaborates on the point I just said, whereas about how the legislation is often misleading, and it often makes people, well, normally always makes people less safe than if sex work was decriminalised. So I know that the traditional route to change legislation would of course be, you know, going to your local MP and then going up the ladder, but that has been done a lot, and MPs and anyone in that kind of type of situation, often they don't want to be seen to be supporting sex work. So often there won't even be the conversations because they're so terrified to be seen to be supporting human trafficking, which, like I said, is a separate issue, that it doesn't get discussed enough, or it doesn't involve the people that it needs to involve. When those laws, it really affects people on the front line the most, but you have all these people making laws that don't understand how it works, and they don't even want to discuss it because it's a taboo subject. So obviously my thing was like, why am I doing a play? What on earth is a play going to do to change this? But I do genuinely think that maybe if we can get people to change their mind, you know, accidentally almost. So if like if I told someone who didn't care at all about this topic, if I told them, oh, go watch this documentary, go read this book, go listen to this parliamentary talk, whatever, they're not going to do it. However, they might come and see a play where they know they're going to be entertained as well. And by humanizing the issue, I thought that maybe that will be a way that might speak to people. But who knows? But that's ideally where I'd like it to go.
Yeah, and I think it's amazing. You said something in a convo we had not too long ago, and it was you were saying about actually the power that theatre does. It helps immerse you into experiences and helps put you in that situation, or helps you put you in the perspective of, you know, look, if you look at how many things come out in theatre or performance that you just wouldn't think, you know, if you put it on paper, well, would I go to that? But actually the way it's presented and the way it's designed to engage you helps you leave, you know, when you walk away from theatre, you might just be like, wow, okay, I watched something really interesting, that's changed my way of thinking. And that's kind of what you're looking to do, isn't it? Because the question that I wanted to kind of lead out with was, why is it important for society, for everyday people, anybody, to engage with issues that don't necessarily concern them, or that they don't think concern them, was outside of their echo chamber? Like, why is that important? Because you could take this issue, or take this theme that we've been discussing, copy and paste that to lots of different things. You know, there's still murmurings and there's things about Black Lives Matter that was dominant this year. Earlier at the start of the year was the Amazon rainforest, lots of different stuff. Did I get that right? Is it? Isn't it? my tech producer at the side is saying, yeah, you got it right. But lots of different issues, and actually, there's always going to be people that are going to be like, well, I've got my opinion on this already. That's wrong. Mm-hmm. And in this case, in particular, it has so many connotations, so many like taboo kind of like areas and no-goes. Mm-hmm. Why is it important that people should feel like should engage with things like this?
I think it's important to engage with things, especially if maybe they don't actually apply to you, just because very few things sit alone in a box. You know, like there's intersectionality with a lot of this. For example, you mentioned the Black Lives Matter movement. It's like widely known that Black trans sex workers are amongst the most at risk. They suffer the most forms of violence. So it is intersectional, and only caring about an issue if it directly affects you negatively I hope we don't live in a world where people only want to pay attention to things that directly happen to them. Unfortunately, I think we might. But the thing is, when I spoke to you about it, a lot of people, not through any fault of their own, but they already think they know about an issue just because what's been presented to us in film, TV, media, whatever. We think we know, and therefore we have quite a rigid, again, not purposefully, but a lot of things we have like, oh, well, that is what I think of that. Subconsciously, you're not really listening to counteractive arguments because you already think, well, but that's how it is. Oh, we can't decriminalize sex work because that will increase trafficking. On the surface, that logic does make sense, but to someone that doesn't know the fact. But if you pull at that string and you look into it, you see, oh, actually, in reality, decriminalising sex work actually means that it's much easier to report crimes and report trafficking and escape from pimps. So people just need to have a more fluid mindset. You know, again, with Black Lives Matter, a lot of people it wouldn't affect them, because if they were like, a white man, they've never experienced growing up not white. So for them to then be like, it doesn't affect me, so like I'm not bothered.
Yeah.
I hope that people will pay attention to things even though they don't directly affect them, because I do think long term it may affect you. It may be someone you know, it may be a friend, it might be a family member, but things often do come into play. You're not living in a bubble.
So yeah, and I really appreciate just sharing that, you know, and at the heart of what you're saying as well is that separating people, a line of work that they do, you know, these are people. Your heart was for the people, and protecting the people and the thing that's supposed to protect them doesn't. And there's so much correlations with lots of different themes, but you've got people who are people first and foremost. They're not their profession, but even still, the profession is legit to run, and the legitimacy isn't protecting the people. Well, listen, it's been great. It's been great today so far, but yeah, 100%. I think we need to develop on this and keep working through this. So I just want to say a big thank you, and yeah, we'll see you very, very soon. To everybody watching, thank you so much for tuning in. It's been great just to present something different and present a topic that maybe you didn't think about. And if you want to get in touch with us, feel free to do that. We're at Beatfreeks. So on all social media platforms, get in touch with us directly. If you want to find out a bit more about fuel funding or anything that we do to support young people and young adults.